All right, welcome back to the Mansdem. Today is Sunday, November 10th, and lucky enough to once again be hooked up with Jesus Noir, Hentley. And so today we're going to go into, we're going to discuss the best teams in the league. Once again, I'm going to piggyback off of an article I saw on ESPN, and essentially, of all their writers, they decided that the best two teams in the league are the Lakers and Clippers and the Bucks and Sixers. So what we want to do today is we're going to dive in a little bit, look at the records of the top teams in the league, and discuss why we think they should be considered among the league's elite, and if they shouldn't be at all. So we'll go right into it. In the Eastern Conference, we have Boston at 7-1. We have Toronto at 6-2. We have Miami at 6-3. Milwaukee 6-3, and the 76ers, a top team according to ESPN, at 5-3. So what I wanted to do was, it's easy enough to just look at a record and say, okay, they're the best team in the conference. They might have the best record in the league. So yes, they're the best team in the league. But I want to go a little further than that and analyze that record. So
Well, the uneducated people they're the people that go to the records and just see the records and say, oh, clearly that's the best team. That's not.
right,
People who do a little bit more analysis can kind of see a little bit more deeper in what's going on to see whether or not that team is actually the best team or not and kind of figure it out from there.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do, reluctantly, I'm going to eliminate the Raptors from the discussion right now, simply because even though they are 6-2, their schedule in terms of top teams includes Boston and Milwaukee. 2 games they lost with those teams. Mind you, they were probably one bad quarter away in both of those games from winning, but that's not the point. Either way, the rest of the schedule was soft. So I'm going to take them right out of the discussion. Hopefully, in a week or two, when we have this discussion again, as a Raptors fan, I can, boost them up a little bit.
But for now, might be a little challenging with the injuries that just have come up. I mean, Lowry's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks.
Because I don't even know if that means he's playing through it or not. But Ibaka is definitely out indefinitely. So yeah, if he's out and Lowry doesn't play through this evaluation period, it's going to be tricky. So they might take their hit right now. So
yeah.
But either way, even though they're at 6-2, we're not going to include them amongst the elite, simply because again their schedule has been pretty soft. So we'll start at the top of the Eastern Conference right now, which is Boston Celtics. They are 7-1, and among those 8 games, they played Philly, they played Toronto, they played Milwaukee, and they played the Spurs. How would you evaluate their schedule and their record at this point?
You know what, Boston? I'm actually surprised at how good Boston is. I actually rate Boston quite highly. The Bucks, I believe, had a lead on them, a big lead from what I remember, and they ended up coming back on them.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing about Boston, I think, is that makes them look really good. I mean, clearly, I'm a big Brad Stevens fan. I've mentioned that before. I think he's a fantastic coach. He's one of those coaches that really transitioned well from college, and is really knows how to connect with his players. I mean, it's a group of young players as well for the most part.
I think that's what helped him.
The thing that's helped Boston the most is that Gordon Hayward has come back. I looked at his numbers. He's got these 20 points. He's up around 7 rebounds, I think, and 5 assists.
Yeah.
Those are a far cry from what he was last year when
Absolutely.
Boston kind of underachieved by a lot of people's standards. This year, with him playing that well, I mean, he just got injured, unfortunately. He just fractured his hand on the screen.
Yeah.
But when he's playing like that, that makes them a tough team because they are great offensively and defensively. I think they got the total package and coaching as well. Yeah, I think that record is legit to me.
Yeah, and I'm not even gonna lie. I'm a fan of Gordon Hayward, but I wrote him off. I know that last year was his comeback here from that big injury, but I actually wrote him off. So I'm impressed at how well he's doing so far. So yes, depending on his status, Boston, their 7-1 record is legit. They're looking strong. Miami Heat, they're a team that I had on the bubble of the playoffs. I had them in the 8th spot in my rankings. They are 6-3 right now. Among their games, they played Milwaukee, they played Houston, they played Denver, and they played the Lakers. Strength of schedule wise, 6-3. Are we taking them serious?
I'm taking them serious because I saw them play against Milwaukee. I actually watched that game. It was a Saturday evening, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Milwaukee had a 21-point lead in that game. By the time I tuned in, lead was starting to dwindle a little bit. But they ended up they were hitting shots. They were doing everything they needed to do, and they were actually hanging with them, and they ended up winning that game.
That went to overtime.
That game went to overtime. Right. Milwaukee actually saved or got into overtime with some kind of a miracle play, which I don't remember exactly what happened, but they got in there with a bit of a miracle play to get into overtime.
Yeah.
So they end up but then Miami then took over again to overtime, and they showed that they can play. I mean, who knows for certain whether or not they can sustain this? Yeah. But I mean, they got Jimmy Butler in there, and I mean, like I think he's, despite all the talk and everything like that, I think he's a really good leader. I think he's a great player, two-way player, and I think that team can go places.
I think he's like a coach, but you have to be with the right personnel to handle the brashness.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as a player, you can't have a bunch of sensitive dudes.
Right. So I think if he's in the right group with a bunch of dogs, they'll rally behind him, and they won't get hurt when he speaks out on them or comes at them. So it's probably a good situation. I think Miami has a good culture for that, so that works out. But I'm impressed that Dragic is doing so well off the bench, and I don't know how long I would ride with Winslow at the one. But I mean, he's doing a great job so far, and he does have the potential to fill up the stat sheet. I don't know how I feel about it, but I mean, 6-3. They're getting production throughout the lineup. Tyler Hero is going to be a stud.
Yeah, he's already a stud.
He might be this year's Luka. He's a guy who wants to go at guys. He wants to guard the best guys. So you like to see that from the young cats.
You love that competitiveness.
Absolutely. So now Milwaukee again. We both pretty much everybody that did the rankings had Milwaukee as the cream of the crop in the East. Mm-hmm. Right now they're 6-3. They have lost some suspect games. But they also have had a strong schedule: Houston, Miami, Boston, Toronto, Clippers, and Utah. Like, they haven't had many sleeper games here.
No, they they had to hit the ground running essentially. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had to come out with that first game against Houston in Houston, and they won that game. I mean, I think it was 117-111, a tight game. Yeah. They kind of showed that they got something, obviously. Right. When you have a game like that, kind of to kick off your season, and then you kind of progress into these other games, mm-hmm. you're not really getting any kind of any relaxation period at all.
You got to be on.
You got to be on, like, from get-go. I mean, I think they're kind of still trying to find their way a little bit without Brogdon there, and with the new pieces that they've got, like Wes Matthews and some other guys. So they're kind of still trying to find their way a little bit. One thing I have noticed about them, and it's kind of goes with that Miami game I mentioned earlier, where they had a 21-point lead. They also had a lead against Boston as well.
They're not holding leads at all.
They're not able to hold leads. Now, is that, I don't know what's going on with them, why they can't hold leads. But in my opinion, I feel like that's something that will get straightened out. I think that they're good enough to get that straightened out. I mean, mm-hmm. they proved last year, they won 60 games last year, and they were like a fantastic team. Yeah. You look at a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, the way he's taken over games. I mean, his stat line is it's actually pretty stupid how good it is right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
he puts up some serious numbers all across the board.
Yeah.
And on the defensive end. So
yeah,
he does everything.
He's the best two-way player in the game right now, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. He's looking on the track to get another MVP, as long as they don't have an issue giving an MVP to the same player 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
But he's a dog, and I think that he's going to pull them up by the bootstraps and keep them from losing these games that they're losing late.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that team a lot.
Okay. And the last but not least, again, ESPN has them as a top 2 team in the Eastern Conference, the 76ers. Not a horrible record. I mean, they played 2 games without Embiid. I believe they were 1-1 in those games. Mm-hmm. Their schedule in terms of strength, they've had to face Boston, they've had to face Portland, they've got Denver, and they got Utah in their Utah game. They won on a last second shot by some unknown dude.
Utah won that game. Yeah, by Bojanovic. I can't. The name it's one of those European names I can't always get properly.
Boban, one of the Bobans.
Yeah, but he hit a 3-point shotter at the end of the.
It was Portland that they got. It's Portland that they beat. Yes, it was Portland that Philly beat on the last second shot.
Well, hey, I'm not even rating Portland right now because I don't know what their team is right now. But anyway,
60-piece by Lillard the night in a loss, man.
Yeah, in a loss though.
Crazy. So 5-3 for the Sixers. Of their 8 games, 4 of them For me, I'll give them four tough games because I'm giving Portland up there in the elite status for the West. So and even not, still 3 tough games for sure.
Yeah.
5-3 record. How are we feeling about Philadelphia right now?
Philadelphia is a team I feel like similar to with Milwaukee, that I feel like they're going to figure it out because the talent is clearly there.
Yeah.
They lost 3 in a row. Could start out 5 and win the first 5 games and lose the next 3. They've had the Embiid suspension for 2 games, and I believe you said they were 1-1. They're kind of I feel like they're still one of those teams that's going to be the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still proving that they are an elite defensive team.
Yes,
they are long. They are active. They can really get at it defensively. I mean, Boston, the team that's 7-1, their one loss to Philadelphia, and I believe they held them to something like 80 points in that game or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, I think it was a grand old game there.
So I mean, it's so they definitely have shown that they can play, and I like them as a team as well. I mean, I think I look at them, Milwaukee and Boston, as the top 3 teams in the East for sure. I think that there are. I think at some point in time, maybe around Christmas, you're going to see these teams start to separate themselves a little bit.
All right, cool. So there's your top 3. Right now, I can't argue with that. Again, taking Toronto out of the equation because of their schedule. Boston is playing phenomenally. They're playing better than I expected they would be to this point. And considering that they have had some tough games in there.
Yeah.
But they're doing their thing. So I'll give them all credit due. Top team in the East right now. I do think Milwaukee is second and Philly is the third. Miami's a surprise team for me. I'm surprised they're doing as well as they are. But
so am I.
We'll see how that plays out. On to the Western Conference. As mentioned earlier, the Lakers and the Clippers have been deemed the cream of the crop out there. And I mean, I know that in our minds, that's what we all thought. But again, this episode, we're looking to dig a little deeper than that. So the Lakers sitting at 7-1, Denver 6-2. Sorry, Denver 7-2, Houston 6-3, Dallas 6-3, Utah 6-3, and the Clippers 6-3. This is how I feel the Western Conference is going to be anyway. Like there's going to be identical records down to the end. It's going to be who won the head-to-head matchups, and possibly going into like their point differential or something like that at the end of the year for tie breaks. So
this is kind of what we expected with the West.
100%.
That it was going to be extremely tight when we started seeing all these rosters developing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we got the Lakers at 7-1. Their tough games include a loss to the Clippers, beating Utah, a questionable win in Dallas, and beating San Antonio. How do you feel about the 7-1 record? Is it fool's gold? Is this what you expected? Is it top spot worthy?
It's kind of interesting because I feel like the loss against the Clippers was not a good loss. I mean, they battled back in that game a little bit, but then they kind of ended up losing it at the end or whatever. But
they had their 2 stars, and that's big to me. That's big. It was just Kawhi as far as superstars go. They had both AD and LeBron going full tilt. Yes, it was the first game and all that, but they had their 2 stars, 2 top 5 guys.
But if you were to look at it, if you look at it as a top 3, and you add Lou Williams in there as well, then the Clippers had 2 of their top 3 guys, whereas the Lakers didn't have Kuzma in there. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's a little bit deeper, I think, of an analysis to say it like that. I mean, Kuzma is not Paul George. No. I mean, he's not as good as him. But Kuzma, I believe Kuzma was a 20-point scorer last year or something like that.
He was really close. He had a hell of a year.
So he's not some scrub, right? He's a really good player, and he's a young, improving player. Yeah. So I think that actually is significant as well. I mean, I think also with the Lakers kind of experimenting with this LeBron point guard business, that's kind of played into that a little bit. I look at them more as a team that has a little bit more of a inside out thing with Anthony Davis being able to post up, and that's what they're doing with him a lot, right? They're posting him up a lot, and then LeBron being able to to do his thing from the outside, and kind of especially with LeBron's vision. Yeah, that team looks dangerous to me, and I mean we know what LeBron can do in this league, so it's going to be interesting. And then it looks like he's motivated. So
hella motivated.
I think that we're looking at a 7-1 Lakers team and I think they are definitely one of the top 2 teams in that league. There's no mirage with that record.
No, ran off 7 in a row. That's not easy to do. So yeah, that's a legit record. We got Denver, who, although they're at 6-2. There's still a bit of a disappointment to me. They had 2 losses, like really bad ones. They lost to Phoenix and back-to-back, I believe.
They lost to New Orleans, and they got pounded by New Orleans.
And I believe it was back-to-back games, and it was like really. So I don't know what you're getting with these guys right now. 6-2, so they're sitting right there comfortably in second place. Well, not comfortably, but they're in second place. I do not know how I feel about them. Their tough games are Portland, Dallas, Miami, and what else we got here? Miami.
I think Phoenix is a tough game actually, because I think Phoenix is a lot better than what people.
5-3. They almost made this list.
Yeah, I mean Phoenix. We all look at Phoenix how they were last year, but look at them this year with Monty Williams as a coach.
Yeah.
Monty Williams can coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I would look at that team. I would look at last year's record from Phoenix and just say, let's throw that out. I look at Phoenix as a tough team this year. So any team that plays them and beats them or does well with them,
they've been in every game from what I can remember.
Yeah,
and this is without Anson right now.
Well, exactly right.
Right, like they're playing without. He's a huge part of their offense
and
defense.
Yeah,
and they're competing. They're fighting every night right now.
Exactly. So they're showing that they're actually a really legit team.
Mm-hmm.
So with Denver losing to them, I don't look at that as a bad loss. The loss to New Orleans, that's a terrible loss. I mean, especially the way they lost. It was like an 18-point game or something ridiculous like that. So I look at Denver as, I think as we saw last year. I mean, I look at that game probably as a one-off, and we saw last year that they're a really good team. I still feel like they're going to show they're a really good team this year.
Me too.
I mean, so that record to me, I'm fine with that record and saying that they're as good as that record is.
Okay.
That one game against New Orleans, like I said, I think that's a one-off. If I see more of those games, then I'll be making a readjustment.
Yeah, Malone's a pretty good coach. I think he'll make adjustments when needed. So
Malone's definitely a good coach. I liked him when he was I believe he was in Sacramento as well.
Yeah,
before that.
So out there, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I like that team.
All right. Next up, Houston, 6-3. Their tough games, as far as I can tell, was just Milwaukee and Miami. So how do you feel about their 6-3? And keep in mind that their 6-3 included a 159-158 overtime game against the Wizards, who have nobody.
Well, this is the thing, right? This is the. I mean, that 159-158 that's like bizarre.
It's disgusting.
Like
it's ridiculous.
How can you allow in a 4-quarter game a Wizards team which can barely guard my high school team,
right,
to actually score that many points on you? Like that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, was it just the everybody's feeling good and just we're not going to defend, we're just going to try to outshoot him or whatever?
Those are all-star game numbers, man. That's an all-star game score.
That is an all-star game score, which is kind of it's embarrassing to
man.
And clearly a 1-point victory on top of that. If it was like, say, a 10, 20-point victory, but the scores are really that high, then I would say, okay, well, that's another thing. But the fact that you literally almost lost that game.
That was a ball game. Like, it was a grind-out game. You didn't just put up 150-something points. You gave up 100-something points. Like, it's just,
That gives me pause to really rate Houston like that. Though, I find that D'Antoni is one of those coaches that kind of seems to be able to get it eventually. And he's able to find, I mean, when he said that James Harden was going to, lead the league in points and lead the league in assists, I doubted him, and then he proved me wrong. So I think that he can find a way to make Harden and Westbrook come together and really, really show that they can that they actually can work together and kind of prove people wrong. Though when you look at that game against the Wizards, I said it in the earlier podcast, I don't think that they're going to be able to play enough defense ultimately to be one of those top teams in the league. So that, despite their record, I wouldn't put them as a top team in the league in the conference for sure.
I agree with that. Next up, this is a personal one for you: the Dallas Mavericks. Surprise team to me. I believe they should be at least this good right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying that I think down the stretch they'll be in the hunt. But right now, I think again you've got Golden State, who's they're done, because I'm hearing Curry might not even return this year anymore, so that's over.
Mm-hmm.
So Dallas is definitely in that 8, 7, 6 spot.
Yeah.
They're 6-3 right now. They're tough games: Portland, Denver, and the Lakers. I believe they split Portland and Denver. I can't remember right now, but they lost a controversial game to the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
Luka and Porzingis balled out. LeBron and AD balled out.
Yeah.
That game went to overtime.
A couple of triple doubles in that game.
Yep. After a missed free throw by DeLon Wright late, and then a game-time three-pointer by Danny Green. After a no call on Dwight Howard, who held Seth Curry, who was either going to intercept that pass or at least have a hand in the face of Danny.
Get in there and make it difficult.
So the 6-3 record for Dallas, which unfortunately includes a tough loss to the Knicks the other night. What do you make of their record right now, and how do you feel about them within the conference?
Well, if you look at I don't know how the hell they lost to the Knicks. Despite that, I mean, that game against the Lakers, they probably shouldn't have lost that. Their record is, I think, is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think I look at them as a team that they're probably, I think they, despite the fact that they look really good now, they're probably going to regress a little bit. I think they still have a little bit of ways to go. I think this is going to be a good kind of building year for them to kind of get those pillars going, and then kind of maybe add a piece here or there in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't look, even despite their record and being one of the better records in the Western Conference, I don't necessarily look at them as a team that I think is going to be there in the end.
Okay.
I mean, we also got to worry about Porzingis' health.
For sure.
Are they going to load management? Do you use a little management with him?
I think they did even last night. He didn't play last night. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, so I mean that. So these are the factors that I'm going to look at when I evaluate Dallas. I definitely don't look at them as a team that can challenge either the Lakers or the Clippers when it comes down to it in the playoffs. So I don't look at them as a top team.
Do you think right now that they're catching teams off guard? Like they didn't think that Luka and Porzingis would have gelled so quickly? Like, are they surprising teams? Is that part of the record, or are they just what do you think about these wins?
You know what? I actually don't, because I think that people should be aware of the fact that Rick Carlisle can coach. He's won a title with a team that a lot of people didn't think was going to win a title in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily think they're a surprising team. I mean, people should look at Porzingis and Doncic. I mean, Doncic rookie of the year. Yeah. Porzingis, I mean, we knew what he could do before he was injured.
Absolutely.
If he's on the court, you got to expect that he can play. So I don't think that people are that they're getting surprised. I just think that those guys are talented enough that they're actually able to make up the gap. I mean,
the team is surprisingly deep as well, though. I mean, they got some guys. I think they need a little bit more secondary size.
Yeah,
but they have a lot of good players. Their roster is pretty thick.
I look at them. They have a lot of good solid bench players.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at the rest of the guys that they have as adequate enough starters to be an upper level team.
Right. Fair enough. All right, going into Utah again, 6-3. Their tough games include the Lakers, the Clippers twice, which they split because of load management. Kawhi Leonard only played the second game, and then they have a game against the 76ers. 6-3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tough games in there. What do you think of their record?
I think the record's all right. I think it's probably fitting for what they are. I mean, I think they're going to be one of those teams that's lower or second tier type team in the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm.
So 6-3 seems to fit to me. I mean, they're going to be in the mix with a lot of other teams. Is how I look at them. Okay. Lakers and Clippers, in my opinion, are going to be the top level teams, going to separate themselves, and then Utah is going to be right there with the Denvers and who knows, maybe even Dallas and the Rockets, I think for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at that record as being pretty solid and right in the mix with everybody else. Their record and their strength of schedule looks like, I mean, they've played some tough games for sure.
Yeah.
And they've come out with a pretty good record, and I think that's indicative of where they are.
Okay, perfect. I even forgot Milwaukee was also on that list. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And they beat Milwaukee.
Yeah, the last second shot.
Yeah,
Boban or Bogdan, whichever one of them. So the last team on the list here, 6-3, the Los Angeles Clippers, still without Paul George, but could make his return as early as tomorrow night. Of course, it would be against the Raptors. Their tough games are the Lakers, Utah twice, San Antonio, Milwaukee, and Portland. So I would say by far the toughest schedule of all the teams on our list in either East or West Conference. They're 6-3. They've played without their secondary superstar the whole time.
Yep.
What do you think of their record? Right where they should be, or is the 6-3 misleading?
I think 6-3 is a little misleading. On one hand, because I think they're probably a better team than 6-3,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, if they're going to continue with this load management for the entire season, then you're probably they potentially could be a team that's going to be in the mix, and where like Lakers would separate themselves and be alone in the top of the Western Conference, and then they'll end up falling back a little bit and being closer to where the other teams, like the teams I mentioned earlier, like Denver and Utah and Houston, are going to be. So it's really tough to know what they're going to do with load management. The Raptors used load management with Kawhi last year.
Yeah.
He missed 22 games with that.
Yeah.
Are the Clippers looking at that type of a schedule that he would play 60 games, or is he going to play 70 games? It's really tough to know exactly what they're going to do with him as far as load management, and it's challenging for me to kind of give an assessment on their record and whether or not I think that's legit.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Paul George comes back in, is he going to basically step in and take over and do what Kawhi Leonard was doing more or less, and when Kawhi is managing his load, so to speak. It's tough to know for certain. Mm-hmm. Also, are they going to get in each other's way at all, like when they come back? I think everybody just kind of assumes that they're going to be able to play well together and everything's going to gel and it's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know that for certain? Who knows? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have two superstars playing together, clearly people feel differently about Russell Westbrook and James Harden playing together.
Yeah.
They're two superstars, but they feel like they're going to get in each other's way. Is it going to be the same type of thing with the Clippers superstars? Don't know for sure. I wouldn't look at that as a foregone conclusion that's going to gel and mesh as easily as everybody thinks it's going to.
True. All right. And yeah, they have again, Phoenix is playing well, but at the time when this happened, Phoenix beat the Clippers earlier in the year, and that was a game where it was like that was a terrible loss for them to have.
Kawhi played that game, I believe.
I believe he played, and Doc Rivers kept him out because at the end he didn't think that they had a chance at winning. I believe that was his rationale for it. Yeah. So again, 6-3. That would be their one bad loss of the season, I guess. And they're getting Paul George back, so we'll see what happens. But in terms of the decided top team in the West, who would you go with?
I definitely think the Lakers are the top team in the West. Okay. Mostly because as I said earlier, I think them and the Clippers would be neck and neck. But because of the fact that the Clippers are probably going to employ load management, and LeBron seems against load management, and Anthony Davis is on record as saying he wants to play all 82.
I like it.
Obviously that means that if health permitting, they're going to play all those. Yeah, I know this is the problem, is that he's fragile. He's been fragile throughout his entire career.
Yep.
But if they do end up playing, close to that level or that many games, then I look at them as a team that's going to get the top seed in the West, and they're going to separate themselves a little bit. And I think that's probably their aim, to get the top seed in the West.
I think so too.
The Clippers, for instance, if they fall down a little bit with load management, they could end up not having home court in, like, say, if they end up with third seed, they could end up not having home court in second round, right?
Right.
So these things, I know people look at the Clippers and say, oh, they're just talented enough, but the West is very, very tight. You cannot say for certain that you think that that one team is going to be like really a lot ahead of another team, especially this early in the season. So home court could mean something. Who knows? So that's I again, like I said, I look at the Lakers as a top team in the West until I see differently.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. This is It's the Herb on Instagram, Mark G. Herbert on Twitter, Jesus Noir on Twitter. We'll be back on another episode to discuss load management. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the Mansdem. Peace out.